Hello, everyone. I am Corey Andrew Powell, and I am joined today by recruiter and workplace expert Bert E. Miller. With over 35 years of leadership experience in the world of work, Bert currently serves as CEO of Protis Global and President and CEO of MRINetwork, a recruitment organization offering consulting, training, contract staffing, and community building to over 325 search firms worldwide. Bert, welcome to Motivational Mondays.
Corey, glad to be here. Thanks for having me on the show. Appreciate it.
Oh, yes. Well, it is my pleasure. And especially because we have so many people in our college age audience, but also non traditional students as well, going into the workforce and trying to figure some things out. So I think this is going to be a great conversation for them as well. So to begin with, though, so over 35 years of experience in this space, but what prompted you to be interested in working in workplace recruitment and workplace dynamics?
Well, first of all, when you say 35 years of working in the world of work, it just tells people how old I am, I guess.
Well, you look young, sir. It's all
Yeah,
good.
it ages me. No, what happened when I came out of school, I went to work for the Gallo Winery. And when I worked for the Gallo Winery, they put me in a distributor in Indianapolis, Indiana. Had the opportunity to work for those guys for about 4 years. And then a recruiter called me 4 years later, and I was open to an opportunity to go work for Revlon North America, based out of New York City. Spent 7 amazing years in and out of New York. My home was Indianapolis, but I commuted back and forth to the city. Spent time with Revlon, had 6 or 7 positions in that 6 or 7 years. Enjoyed myself, but at that time, my kids, my daughter at the point was 9 years old and playing softball and made an all-star team. My son was getting ready to play t-ball. And I had this entrepreneurial bug from, long ago when I used to go and help my dad in his business. And so that was the right time in 1995 to launch Protis Global. And that's how I got here, man.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I mean, and first of all, the companies you started out with, I mean, so Gallo, is that like Ernst and Gallo, the same organization?
Yes.
I remember the commercials as a kid. I believe that was the commercial with "We shall serve or sell no wine before it's time." Was that the
Well,
one? I don't know.
that's a different one, but you're on the right track. That's
Yeah,
during that era and that
during that
genre of
era.
time, that genre of commercials that were coming out from all the wineries, including
Yeah.
Gallo. Gallo had
Yeah.
brands like Andre Champagne. They had the
Mm.
wine coolers that came out called Bartles and James, and of
Oh,
course
of course. Yeah.
the Gallo
Take
wine. Yeah,
Andre for the holidays was the big commercial as a
yeah,
kid.
yeah.
Andre for the
Yeah.
holidays. I was a big TV kid, so that's pretty much how I reference everything is from a
Yeah.
commercial. And even Revlon as well. That's a great, obviously a big major beauty brand. So you started with, I guess, the kind of cream of the crop. So that would make sense as to why you sort of learned so quickly in that world. Now, I know that some of the things you talk about are really things that are dynamic now, especially in the workplace. One of them is this phenomenon we know now called quiet quitting, that everyone sort of does like a buzzword. And I think there's a misconception of what that is. So share what your perception of quiet quitting.
Yeah, I've kind of refused to participate on the quiet quitting thing in terms of the media. Meaning, I've not written anything on my LinkedIn. I've been asked a couple questions. I did submit one article early, but the reason I'm kind of staying away from it, Corey, is I think quiet quitting's been around for a long time. It's been around for decades. Somebody went on TikTok, gave it a name, that's what happens, and we picked up on it. But what I do think it did bring to light, um, for individuals. It brought to light to take a look at their career, look at their professional scorecard, and really decide what it is that they want to do. Are they where they want to be? Are they in an environment that keeps them curious? Are they in an environment that makes them look around and dig in and always continue to be learning their craft? If you're not curious and you're not working further to learn your craft, that's an environment you probably don't want to be in. And then for the employers, I think it brought back to light, and to the fact that what we have to do as we are employing individuals is we really need to take a step back ourselves and really assess, are we providing them a true North Star? Is there a mission that they're on? Are they in the right place? And then I think it's a mutual coming together. So I think that's the good thing that quiet quitting and that buzz has created. But in terms of the actual, action of quiet quitting, it's been going on for decades. There's been a lot of people that have stayed on jobs and just doing enough to barely get by. We that's been going on for decades.
Right, as we call it, they just kind of check out, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm so glad you brought up the administrative, the employer end, because that was literally a follow-up question I had for you, which was there was so much emphasis put on the quiet quitting from the standpoint of the worker, from the associate, right? And what I thought was there's something to be said about the studies that suggest when people quit a job or leave a job, they're not leaving the job necessarily, they're leaving the people, or they're leaving a manager or someone who didn't provide them with an opportunity. So I think that's a really wise way to look at it. It's a two-way street that maybe both sides can learn from, actually.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, as an individual, if you're looking to take a role and you don't want to get in that situation of just doing enough to get by or putting yourself in a vulnerable position that you can't put yourself in by living in that type of environment, is really look and try to how do I become the best version of myself. And by going through your scorecard personally, professionally, and financially, overlaying that template on the opportunity that you are considering, if that your scorecard starts to marry with that, and then you have a leadership that is there that you can get behind and believe in, it's a good market, a good product, you're in a really, really great space. And there's clarity around where the organization is going, and they provided a story and a path of where you're headed, and you can verify that. That's probably the place you want to go versus just taking a job.
Right. Yeah, I think so many people make that mistake, especially when we all need money. I mean, obviously. So, you get an opportunity for a job and you're like, I'm just going to take the job. And I think the first time I experienced making a choice was, for me, and this is nothing against people who smoke, right? But cigarettes for me, just not my thing. And I didn't want to work in an industry that promoted them. But I was broke as a copywriter at one point, and they dangled this opportunity with like more money that had ever been paid yet for like, Philip Morris. And I mean, it was a really difficult sort of like 48 hours for me to be like, well, if I'm not aligned with what this opportunity is, how happy will I be? Can I be proud of the work I do? And ultimately, as broke as I was, I did not take the job. And, uh, but it
That's
was
a
a
good move.
choice.
Good
I mean,
choice.
yeah, it's a choice. And you learn something about yourself when you do that. Now, also, when it comes to, when you talk about people who have to prepare for, I guess, prepare their resume, which is, I think, sort of different from standing out to recruiters. I mean, they're kind of synonymous in a way, but I think they're two different things. So when it comes to like how to stand out to recruiters to get the job you want, what are some of the things you suggest to people when you're having those conversations?
Yeah, that's a great question. And Corey, when I am looking to do my own hiring or I'm looking to represent a talent, an individual to a company, the resume is, I really don't pay a lot of attention to the resume. It's just an entry point. And so the question you're asking is a good one. The things that get my attention are, it's really simple. Where have you been? What have you done? How well have you done it? And if you can articulate that and quantify that in really, what I call with brevity, bullet points that kind of give the history of your progression, I look for those types of things. What have you participated in outside interest? And again, the roles you've had, what you've done and how well you've done it. That at that point in time, that tells me a story, at least the beginning of a story, and that will get my attention. Conversely, if I see a resume with large gaps in between roles, misspellings, poor grammar, things that don't really tell a story. It's all paragraphical, and I would have to read it unless you're really in a highly technical role, or you're a senior fellow in R&D, and you have a lot of white papers. But that you certainly need that. But if you're in a typical role, that would not get my attention. I just want to know what you've done, how well you've done it. That's important to me.
From where you stand, though, I do have to ask because I've been in a situation where I got a break in my career right out of college, and I got that break because a chief marketing officer considered me, although later on I got the job. He sat me down and said, "What I want to tell you is that you were very unconventional on paper." And I wonder how often are we, well, now, I mean, misspellings, of course, you can't have, and that's different, right? But there are some people who have just had these really strange paths in life. And I wonder about, do those people somehow just don't get opportunities because we are maybe so structured to, sort of as you just said, we look for the bullet points we look for, and if they're not there, then we may move on. But do you think that maybe on the recruiting end, there could be maybe more consideration given? Look at me, I'm advocating for the people who are unconventional on paper, but do you think there's some room there for more consideration for the unconventional resume?
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, I'll give you an idea, give you just an example, Corey. Perhaps I was talking to somebody that is an Eagle Scout. I mean, his kid is an Eagle Scout, and he took that entire journey from his childhood all the way and to become, a top flight Eagle Scout. That is some incredible dedication to do that. So these are the kind of things you can put on your resume that may be a little unconventional, but they do stand out. You're the captain of, your sports team. You were, first chair in a band or wherever the case may be. These are things I truly just want, if you can get to if I get past the resume, once I'm in front of somebody, I'm interviewing the person. The resume does not really, it doesn't do a lot for me in terms of how I make my decisions on people. All it does when you're getting, influx of a lot of resumes and people reaching out to you in CVs, there's certainly things that you want to take a look at that tend to stand out. And, I gave you mine. And I think that is somewhat unconventional because when you're taking a look at a resume like that, Corey, there's some real distortion, right? What you've done and then what you've done and then your accomplishments and then quantify those very clearly. That immediately, number one, the distortion of the paper and the way that you have that set up brings the eye to it. Once the eyes to it, then you actually see, how the person they quantify their accomplishments. That gets my attention. And at that point in time, I interviewed the person and kind of put the resume aside. I don't think people, I don't think a lot of hiring is going to be done from resumes, particularly as we today going forward.
Yeah, we're in a very different landscape, and people are sort of finding people through very different, there's the term again, unconventional ways. Like I know recruiters who will reach out to people on LinkedIn, and it's just because they liked the way they curated posts. And so they were like asking them, "Hey, there's a social media director position." And they're like, "No, but I work in finance." They're like, "No, but I love the way you," and people begin to maybe consider other possibilities for careers because we're in such a vast landscape now of opportunity.
And video and telling your story. I mean, you have a different ways of taking who you are, creating that content, and you have the various platforms that you can put out there for people to really see who you are, or gives you the best platform for you to certainly
Mhm.
put your best foot forward. And it's not always a CV.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I guess, I mean, the main thing that we know about recruitment, typically on the end of the person looking for a job, is the resume, as we just discussed. But when we, what I asked, I guess earlier too, is like the synonymous question of, is that the same as getting the attention of hiring managers, right? It's like, or is there some other way that maybe is a conventional way to maybe reach out to recruitment, just to solicit for an opportunity that will allow them to at least make the conversation, or open up the dialogue? Is there a wrong or right way? Are there any tips there that you can recommend?
Yeah, well, there's been two examples of that just in the last couple of weeks for us. We've had, and I already talked about one. I mean, you can do a video, you can create your content platform online. You can also you can put nice copy together and have some thought leadership, to your point on LinkedIn, tag that hiring leader, and that will get somebody's attention as well. Or you can pick up the phone and reach out to someone or have a conversation, or certainly provide your number to have a conversation, which was what happened to us a couple of weeks ago. We're interviewing, he's 24 years old, just coming out of school, and he reached out to us by phone fantastic, mature, articulate, smart, and did not wait just to send a resume or an email. He wanted to actually have a conversation, and just that little piece there, Corey, got our attention enough to reach out to him, and we're glad we did.
Wow, I love that because
Yeah.
that's a big testament to being proactive, not waiting for something to fall in your lap. If you are interested in a position or something, connect those dots and reach out. And I think something that I have seen a lot too that's come up a lot with recruiters I've spoken to is there is a method maybe that should be more thoughtful word maybe for it. But there's a way to reach out through email that I think is a lost art for a lot of people. And they don't even use it in that way, but it's okay. I mean, I think right now we're used to getting solicitations. Like LinkedIn has become I can't even sometimes go to my inbox. It's like, it's just a bunch of stuff. But people are, I think, not utilizing the art form of maybe even handwritten notes or proper emails that are strategic in what they say, the body of the email, not just like, hey, I'm looking for a job, right? To be more thoughtful in how they do it is really necessary.
First of all, you evaluate your scorecard. You see a place a company that you may want to call home. And if you've done your homework and done your research, there are very not just thoughtful ways, but thought leadership, and what I would call you're able to communicate to that hiring manager around the strategy or an idea. Perhaps that hiring leader posted something online, and you took a piece out of that, and you're able to take that piece of what he or she posted and put a very thoughtful message and copy around that, and include that in your email. You will get their attention, absolutely.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Is like some research might be involved too. Find out more about maybe some things about the CEO or the hiring manager that can connect some dots between the two of you. I interviewed a girl who realized that a hiring manager had gone to Syracuse University, which is where she had gone. And so she was like, that's it. But she would not have known that if she had not just done a little more work to find out a little bit about that hiring manager. And then that brings me to the other point too, about LinkedIn specifically. Um, how, I don't want to say important because we know it's important, but would you say that that is a place that is a must be place for someone looking for a job, or does it matter if they're not on LinkedIn? I mean, if you find, like, for example, if there's a recruiter and you're looking and they have no LinkedIn profile, are you like, they don't even have a LinkedIn profile? Like, how legitimate are they? Is there a mentality there with recruiters, you think?
Yeah, I think there is. Whether you acknowledge it or not, there is that you certainly have that position. I mean, look, if you're going to be in the professional workforce today, LinkedIn is the platform. I can't speak, what the future might hold, but today, LinkedIn is that platform. LinkedIn primarily has been a learning platform, and for those, and I think people can see through the white noise and all the people that are on there just posting whatever they're posting. You also get the other people that are able to stand out, that provide information or education or a certain level of inspiration, aspiration that ties to a certain industry or a certain company. And by doing that, you do start to stand out because now you become a thought leader in that space. And so if you're an individual looking for a role, and I think you've already said it, Corey, what does that hiring leader do? Where are they going? Have they made a strategic acquisition? Have they created a product? Tie all those things back in when you reach out, because that's going to show that you, number one, not only you did your research, but you're able to think. You have a critical thinking mind on how you tie pieces together, and that will get people's attention and see you differently than the other person that is applying for a role or just saying, "Hey, you know, my name is Bill. I'm reaching out. I saw you have a great company. I was wondering if you had an opportunity. I'd love to talk to you." Generally, that's not going to get anybody's attention.
Right. Yeah. That would fall flat. Might work, 25 years ago because there was not so much other stuff coming at recruiters to try to find, a strong team. But I also spoke to a woman named, she's amazing, Mandy McEwen, and she's got like this LinkedIn rock star status as a LinkedIn expert. And we discovered I discovered in my conversation with her that, younger people, like the 24-year-old young man you mentioned, or in that generation, they're a little afraid of LinkedIn. They don't know really what to do with LinkedIn. Have you found that there's younger people in your when you, in your line of work, when you interact with them, that you have to like convince them to be on LinkedIn and they don't really think it's relevant? They may be of the TikTok generation. I mean, have you seen that sort of dynamic in your line of work with younger people?
Yeah, I think some, Corey. I think that's a fair statement. Or they're not sure what to do with it or how to take their persona and create their message. Who do they want to be online, and how do they how do they communicate? And I think a lot of people are a bit afraid. Number one, to start writing. Will they like what I have to say? You know, I believe that just getting started is the most difficult part for some of the younger people coming to LinkedIn. Of course, it is an older platform, and it's when there's many other platforms that will garner their attention. There's a shiny new object over here, and there's another platform over there. But from a professional perspective, I do think LinkedIn is the platform, and I also believe that those that have a difficult time getting started are those they're a bit afraid. They may not know they're afraid, but they're a bit afraid about how their information, their content, will be received.
Yeah, that's a wise point too, because I think when you talk about that younger generation, they are used to a lot more freedom on social media platforms. And one of the things that Mandy, mentioned was that, you know, some of them have to realize the distinction between, okay, this is not Facebook. So you can't put everything on LinkedIn that that you'd put, or TikTok. You do have to sort of, but what we discussed was that when people are looking to recruit, as you started off this segment with, you said, it's about looking for people, like you're investing in finding people. So that means that you have to build a profile on LinkedIn and share some of your personal life, outside of work. So you can build a persona and, kind of make sure people know there's a real person behind the recruit. I think that goes a long way as well. So,
Yeah, I think the tone of your message can be there too. And I think I mentioned it, just a second ago. What I try to do, and I think many people that have had reasonable success try to do with it, that garners people's attention. It almost gets you out of a situation where you're in the white noise, a room of white noise, and takes you into a room where you can have a one-on-one
mhm.
dialogue. These people are attracted to learning, and when you can provide them quality information, content, or you can bring an educational point into the area that they seek, whatever that sector is, or provide aspiration. Those people tend to be attracted by that, and if you have that tone, you tend to build that tone. You're now building your persona as a thought leader.
Yeah, many companies are people first, now today in this landscape. And that means they're looking more to sort of cultivate a diverse community of inclusivity. And so that means really getting to know who people are outside of just their resume or their job search. So, one other thing that you talk about too that I love, and I want to get your insight on that, which would be, now I mentioned my situation with the cigarette job. That was a very blatant, obvious no, right, for me. But you talk about red flags and signs of when you should turn down a job offer. And I guess they're not always as blatant as the one I described earlier. But so, what are some of those red flags that you would say are markers to be like, oh, maybe I should reconsider this?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's great for your listeners too, Corey, because particularly in today's world, I mean, we're always looking for more flexible, agile leaders today than even in the past, and it's required because the desired skills have to be there, but technology is only accelerating that, right? So if you, particularly since the pandemic, I mean, you had the pandemic, and coming out of the pandemic, you had leaders that emerged and stepped up, and you had perceived leaders that certainly didn't do quite as well during that time. And the important things, not only being agile, but once again, can you paint a picture to somebody and show them what is going on with the organization and where the company's headed? Where the company's headed? Is there a point of, can you provide them not only a pathway, but also the step-by-step vision of how you're going to get there? Do you have a singular North Star that a mission that people can really get behind? And then individually, going back to that scorecard I keep bringing up, a personal, professional, financial scorecard, can you show someone in your organization how they can be the best version of themselves, even beyond levels that they might even imagine for themselves? And now they see themselves going further than perhaps even they thought they could. And when you're able to paint that picture, Corey, in today's world, companies and leaders will have a leg up, not only strategically, but actually tactically and in real life of winning talent.
Well, those are excellent words of wisdom, and I appreciate that insight so much. And we thank you for being here today with us, Bert E. Miller, recruiter and workplace expert. It's a pleasure to have you here today on Motivational Mondays, and thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me on the show. Appreciate it.